I'm bigcal and welcome to my world. Today is the first proper big video for Questober V. So last year this video was supposed to happen, but due to illness it never got done, so I've simply moved it to this year instead. In one of the earlier Questober videos I took a look at the original Dragon Quest Monsters game for the Game Boy, and today I'm finally taking a look at Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince for the Nintendo Switch. As a fan of the Monsters spin-off series, I was very excited when it was announced in June of 2023, and then more so when they announced it was coming out later that year. It originally was a Switch exclusive, though about a year later it did get a port on PC. I haven't played it there yet, I've only played the Switch version. It is a shame that it never got ported to any other system, and now we're into a next generation of consoles. There's a good chance it's just going to forever be locked to Switch and PC. At least with PC it's going to be there for some time and you're not locked into an old generation system, but it would have been nice if it got released on other consoles. Anywho, the thing that separates this particular Monsters game from the rest of the series is that the story mirrors the story for the mainline game of Dragon Quest IV. Only instead of playing the hero like in that game, you get to play the game's main antagonist, Saro, the Manslayer. Since you hopefully watched my previous Questober video on Dragon Quest IV, you should know the basics of the story of that game. Saro decides that he wants to rule over all monsters and wipe out humanity using the secret of evolution to turn him into an all-powerful monster. And while we did get some explanation here and there as to why he was doing what he did, there were still a lot of things that we just didn't know, like the reason for him starting down this journey to begin with. Obviously, Rose being killed hyped him up even more to want to kill humans, but why was he doing any of this in the first place? Why did he want to rule over monsters beyond basic wanting to have power? This is where Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince shines. We finally get more information, more background, more story for Saro and the characters around him as well. So on the one hand, it is a bit jarring to have all these new characters, new villains and new plot points introduced to an already established story from Dragon Quest IV. But then, on the flip side of that, we also have new villains and new characters, new story and plot points to an already established story for Dragon Quest IV, and that's kind of awesome. The game opens with a young Saro being bullied by a couple of kids, with another coming to his rescue, sort of. We then see the same kid show up to Saro's house to tell him that some monsters have attacked his dad and will be back for the rest of his family. Saro slays this monster while his new friend secretly looks on, only to discover that Saro is not some ordinary kid, but has super strength and is monster royalty. Humans, being the awful creatures that they are, instead of thanking Saro for killing the monster, burn his house down and hunt him and his mother. With his mother dying, she begs him to embrace his humanity and not his monster side, and asks that he stay away from his father, the ruler of Naderia. Shockingly, Saro pays no attention to his mother and sets off to confront his father, Randolpho the Tyrant. He blames his father for what happened, and, well, you can't blame him for blaming him. If Saro wasn't part monster, none of this would have happened. Upon finally reaching his father, ruler of the underworld, Saro tries to kill him, but is more than outmatched. Instead of killing the boy though, Randolpho curses Saro for being able to inflict any kind of damage on monsters, before trying to send him away to the end of time. Unfortunately for Randolpho, the Zenithian dragon interferes and transports Saro away. Telling him his mother has passed away, he asks if he will live as a human, just like his mother asked. But Saro is more determined than ever now to kill Randolpho and take over as master of monster kind. We are now taken to the game's present time, with a more grown-up Saro living in a small village. Things seem to be okay until some monsters arrive seeking out Saro. However, due to the curse, Saro is unable to fight back against them, and instead is saved by Monty, a fellow villager who happens to be a monster wrangler. And it is here that we begin our journey to becoming a master monster wrangler. Monty decides to give you a quiz, and in game you just answer a bunch of very basic questions, and at the end of it he will gift you with a monster for your party. And don't worry, this isn't like Pokemon with the professor giving you some uber rare, very powerful monster right from the start. No, you get a very basic, very common, very weak monster. But if you've played the Dragon Quest Monster series before, you'll know that this doesn't matter, because soon enough that monster will be something different entirely. With your very own monster, it's time to learn all about how to become a wrangler, complete with a little tutorial from Nora, a first-rate instructor. I won't go over all the details here as I'm focusing on the game's story for now. Once you've got to grips with monster wrangling, it's time to head to a familiar Dragon Quest IV location, Endor. Here you can compete in a monster wrangler tournament, pitting your team of monsters against other people. Again, this is something I'll go over more later. After you win your first tournament, a big story element occurs with the introduction of Rose. She is being put up for sale due to the fact her tears turn into rubies. What nobody realises is that the rubies shatter. Upon discovering this, an argument takes place, giving Rose a chance to escape. She is quickly found, but before she can be captured once more, Saro shows up to rescue her. She decides to remain with you in order to aid you becoming the top monster wrangler, and in return, the village builds a tower to keep her safe from other humans. This tower will also act as a hub of sorts as you travel to new locations to fight in bigger and better tournaments, all leading up to you and your team of monsters becoming strong enough to defeat Randolpho. Okay, so that is a lot of story already, I know. But it is just the beginning. Quite literally. This happens in the first hour and a half of gameplay. But before I can go into more of the story, I need to add more context to it by going over some of the gameplay elements. As I already mentioned, Saro wants to become a monster wrangler, so that he can go after his father and any other monsters that get in his way. Due to the curse placed upon him, he can't actively fight them himself, so he has to recruit and train the strongest monsters that he can. A quick introduction for anyone unfamiliar with the Monsters games then. It's sort of like Pokemon, where you and a team of monsters battle other monsters. However, instead of catching wild monsters, you have to entice them to join your team. Sometimes this can happen automatically at the end of a battle, but most of the time you will need to throw some various types of food in order to increase their capture rate. During battle, you can select the Scout option, which will see your monster party attack whichever monster you're wanting to recruit, and the more damage they do, the higher the percent chance of recruiting them becomes. And if you use food, that will automatically add to the percentage as well. Getting 100% will guarantee you recruit them. For every other percentage, it's just chance. While this does mean that recruiting new monsters is more difficult than in Pokemon games, especially more modern ones, which makes it incredibly easy, the synthesis system helps to balance things out. Instead of having to capture many monsters and leveling them up to evolve, once you unlock the ability for synthesizing, you can combine two monsters to make a new, stronger one. With monsters all having a rank, from G being the lowest to X being the highest, you can often synthesize two low-ranking monsters together to create one of a higher rank, thus giving you better stats and abilities. Over 500 monsters are available, with only so many being recruitable and the rest requiring synthesizing to obtain. Each monster has its own family, which is essentially the elemental types from Pokemon. You have Slime, to Dragon, to Material, and even Unknown for some of the rarer monsters. Now, in Pokemon, elemental attacks and typings are key to battle basically. If you're up against a fire type, you're going to want a good water type, basically, to get at least 2 times advantage using that particular attack. Here, it seems to me that the monster family types are geared way more towards synthesizing than battling. While certain monsters are obtained by only synthesizing two specific monsters together, there are many monsters that will be created using any monsters from specific families. Handy for creating more common monsters that you might need to synthesize with something specific later, saving you from having to search them out and recruit. As I've mentioned, one of the main focuses on building up a monster wrangling party are the tournaments. There are two in the game. One is in Endor, which is part of Terrestria, think of that as Earth, and the other is in Naderia, which the demon realm / hell, basically. And each of them have ranking battles going from G all the way up to S. And basically you go in with a party of monsters, and for each ranking you will have multiple battles against opponent monster parties, basically. The key thing here though is that you cannot attack. You cannot tell the monsters what they're going to do. It's all based on tactics, which is a nice little throwback to the original version of Dragon Quest IV on the NES, where you can control your party for the majority of the game without using cheats. Instead, you have to rely on those tactics. So you may have a powerful monster which is very good at hitting, so you're going to want to set his tactics to attack, use his MP if he's a powerful spell user. And then for your healer type monsters, you're going to want them to focus on healing and defense. And it's a really good way to separate the game styles, where you go around with your monster party in the overworld and through all the different other levels of the game, controlling everything if you want. But here, you have to make sure that your party is the absolute best, because they're going to be doing the work, not you. And honestly, I find it really fun. Obviously, synthesizing monsters into more powerful monsters is a large aim of the game, but you still have to level them up like any other RPG in order to get stronger. As they level up, you gain talent points. Unlike stat points that you would have in other RPGs that allow you to increase things like health, strength, defense, etc., those grow naturally as you level up. Instead, talent points are there to buy new abilities. Each monster has their own talents, usually starting with just one with low ranking monsters and eventually being able to have up to 3 when they are higher ranked. These talents can range from stat boosters, with each level of talent points unlocking small incremental increases until you max out the talent, to various types of magic and physical attacks. Since monsters don't learn attacks or skills naturally, you'll need to ensure that you use your talent points as quickly as possible when you gain them. When it comes to synthesizing, you can combine these talents for the new monster that is created, and you gain about 50%, I think, of the talent points spent on them to use on the newly created monster, allowing you to quickly gain back certain stat boosts and abilities, further solidifying the need to synthesize to get stronger monsters. There are a number of different locations for you to visit throughout your playthrough, and these are all split up into 3 categories: lower echelon, middle echelon, and upper echelon. Echelon, yeah, whatever. And then within those echelons, there are a number of circles, each being their own little world, and it's kind of like the circles of hell from Dante's Inferno. These can range from literal hellscapes with lava flowing everywhere, to industrial complexes and military installations, and even a world made out of cakes, which I really want to visit. Each echelon has its own version of each circle. So for example, the first circle is Circle of Conquest. There is one in the lower echelon, middle echelon and upper echelon. Each circle has the same theme to it, but thankfully the game does vary up by taking you to a different circle each time, rather than simply progressing more linear by going to each echelon's version of the same circle until it's complete and moving on to the next one. Much more fun this way. Each new location you visit opens up more monsters to scout and new story elements. Having more monsters to scout is fantastic because as you get further into the game, the monsters get stronger, and then you can synthesize them to make even more powerful monsters. Unfortunately, you can't just wander into a new circle and scout everything there because they just won't have any of it. Instead, you need to build up a reputation. Doing this can be simple. Just go to Endor or the one in Naderia and beat another rank of the tournament. And then monsters will let you scout them. Sometimes though, you have to beat a big hitter. These come in two forms usually, either a boss, which is part of the story, or a literal big hitter. Monsters that are bigger than usual. See, monsters come in two sizes, small and large. Small monsters only take up one slot in your 4-monster party, while large monsters take up 2 slots. There are also stat differences between the same monsters in small and large forms, such as speed and attack. Large monsters, especially early in the game, are almost impossible to catch, but if you do get lucky and are able to grab one within the first couple of circles, you will have a very powerful monster to help you through the beginning parts of the game. Exploring each circle is fun too, with items scattered about, different monsters in different locations, and thanks to this game's main gimmick, different seasons can also affect the landscape, open up new areas, and change up the available monsters too. Yep, as you explore, the season will change from spring to summer to autumn and then winter, bringing about weather changes as well. And it's from the changing weather that the maps will change. Sometimes you'll need to wait for winter for a river to freeze up, allowing you to cross. Maybe summer to dry out a river, letting you explore the now empty riverbanks. Other effects can be flowers that catch the wind and carry you to a new location, literal changing landscapes that open up new paths, and simple ivy climbing up walls for you to climb up as well. You also get snow and rain, which further change up the monsters that come out. Some circles you'll need to wait for season changes to progress, while others will just have items and hidden locations for you to explore. While this isn't a new feature in games, it's done really well here and does add something new to the Dragon Quest Monster series. Wait, I didn't even tell you how you travel to these new circles, did I? You see, Rose is an elf, and using elven magic, combined with these items known as Travelite, which is a sort of crystal, she can open up new locations for you to travel to. And when you do, the entire tower travels with you. The tower acts as a home base, a place to rest up, buy items, synthesize monsters, deposit gold in the bank, and access some online functions, like an online shop that changes its wares every day, and an online function where you can battle other players, though personally I've never bothered and I've heard it's not very good. The tower itself won't win any design awards or anything like that, but it gets the job done. Oh, and don't worry, you can simply use Zoom to fast travel to any previous location, so you don't need to go back to the tower every single time you want to travel somewhere. With the gameplay loop explained, it's now time to go back to more of the story and how it all plays out with this new format of monster recruiting. As you begin your arena battle career in Endor, you meet up with Virgil, who claims to be a talent scout for the arena in Naderia, and it's from him that you gain your first Travelite that lets you travel to Naderia. He seems to be very helpful, encouraging you along the way and giving you useful pieces of information on monster wrangling. Of course, he's not what he seems. In truth, he is a pawn of Aemon, who in turn is a pawn of Randolfo the Tyrant, your father. So if you go back to my review of the game last year, Dragon Quest IV on the DS specifically, and the extra chapter at the end, you will know that Aemon is in fact manipulating everything from behind the scenes so that he might take over and become ruler of, well, everything. The main difference here is we now have Randolfo sitting atop as ruler of all of monster kind. So he just becomes another person for Aemon to betray if he ends up getting in his way. But of course the main plan of Aemon is to manipulate Saro into becoming so powerful he can take out Randolfo, and then most likely when Saro has his back turned or his guard down, Aemon will betray him as well and take over. But just how is Aemon planning to become the ruler of all of monster kind? How is he planning to get through Saro and Randolfo should they reveal his plans early? Well, you guessed it, the secret of evolution.
Evolution is a mystery.
But before we get into all of that, let's just take a little step back from the main story. See, whenever Cyro visits a new circle, there is always something going on there. This isn't like your more typical JRPG with towns and stuff, however there is usually some sort of gathering of monster NPCs that will present you with a problem, and yeah, it's up to you to fix things. Not only does this keep the game plodding along nicely, with the goals simply beyond recruiting monsters and levelling up, but it also gives you a chance to bring those NPCs to your side, which will be useful in the battle to come against your father. The first of these side quests, I guess we can call them, is in the Circle of Temper. It seems a fat rat named Norbert has been separated from his son due to molten lava erupting, cutting off the land. Turns out a dragon named Bernie is at fault. He, the youngest of a group known as the Brimstone Boys, has opened up something called the Infernal Gate. Not only can you do a good deed and close the gate to rescue Norbert's son, but your reputation can grow if you beat Bernie, who happens to be the big hitter. Not only that, but Norbert appears to mention something about a green stone, which could very well be more Travelite. But it's been stolen. During your quest, you meet up with an alchemist called Toil and Trouble. His name sounds familiar, but I just can't place it. Oh well. He is annoying. Very, very annoying. And also a thief, and it turns out that he was in fact the person who stole the green Travelite from Norbert. You attempt to kill him because you're Cyro, the Manslayer. That's kind of your thing. But Rose convinces you to leave him alone, and you do. He escapes, and you decide that you have bigger things to go after, such as Bernie. When you reach him, he reveals that this is all part of a bigger plan, and he was told to open the gate by his brothers. He's a pushover, and he literally just walks away after you defeat him, letting you close the gate. The plan can't have been that important then, right? With no lava flow, the level opens up more as you can access new areas, including the part where Norbert's son is. He returns home, and when you visit, he's reunited with his rat dad. Aww. Speaking of reunited, Toylan is back, and he gives you the green Travelite. But he does so at a cost. A big cost. A huge, major, game-changing, life-changing cost. He wants to come with you, and we have to put up with him the entire game. The green Travelite takes you to the Circle of Indulgence, my favourite circle, as everything is made from cakes and sweet stuff. No need for me to go over everything here, as I do like to try and keep as much spoiler-free as possible, which does sound insane because I am going over the major plot points, but I'm still missing out a lot, trust me. Anywho, when you head back to the tower and travel to the next gate, Virgil appears and, wow, already confesses that he isn't who he says he is, and introduces you to Amon, who comes clean and says he wants your aid in defeating Randolfo. Of course, he still keeps the fact he wants to kill you all hidden, but yeah, this reveal does come really early in the game, but I guess it is needed as this is the part where he tells you about the secret of evolution and the monster who is researching it. While on the surface, he's giving you all the information you need to gain power to defeat your father, what he's actually doing is manipulating you into getting everything ready for him to learn the secret of evolution and kill you all. Soon after, by defeating 3 guardians and unlocking memories of 3 ancient and evil monsters, you learn of something called the Secret of Creation, that even has the great Zenithian dragon scared. It appears to have been stolen by a Zenithian called Azabel, who seemingly intends to destroy the world and start anew. But remember, these are indeed memories, meaning all of this is past tense. The Zenithian dragon stepped in and took care of things, separating the 3 evil monsters' bodies from their souls and banishing Azabel to an ancient elven world. Good job, none of this will ever come up again and it will remain history. Well, after that history lesson, the Zenithian dragon summons you to see him. You might think this is about what you've just learnt, but nah, just another evil monster. Estark, Lord of the Underworld, is about to rise again. Saro is not enough to defeat this monster alone though, and he will require help. Help from the Chosen One and his group of heroes. Wonder who those could be. However, Saro has other plans, wanting to subjugate Estark and use him to help defeat Randolfo. But you aren't the only one with this idea. Zangiel, the Omniarch, Randolfo's biggest rival, also wishes to control Estark and rise up against Randolfo. Time to go beat him and have him under your control as well. However, in a twist, it turns out that Zangiel has been waiting for Saro and bends the knee. Now you have a monster army to aid you in controlling Estark and taking down your father. We then learn that Saro's older brother, Dolph the Destroyer, who is so despicable that all the monsters now under your control, joined up with Zangiel in the first place to take him down, knowing that he would be the destruction of all monsters should he ever take the throne from your father. You were also given the title of not just king, but Saro the Manslayer, because apparently you wish to wage war on all of humanity, which does seem to come out of nowhere, mostly. Now, yeah, humans have been pretty shitty to you in the past, but everything leading up to this point has been focused on Saro's hatred of his father, Randolfo. He blames him for being part monster, which is why the humans turned on him. He blames him for not helping his mother when she was sick and letting her die. So where is all this human killing nonsense coming into it? If you know the story of Dragon Quest IV, then you'll know something will give you a very good reason to kill humans, but for now it's a strange plot point. At least Toylan has left you after discovering this information, so we don't have to have his annoying ass following us around for now. From this point, the story of the heroes from Dragon Quest IV begin to intertwine with that of Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince's story. Remember when Elena's father, the King of Zamotsva, had a dream about Estark coming back and then one day the entire kingdom vanished? Well, turns out Virgil told Saro about this, and Saro has the entire kingdom kidnapped and thrown in prison. We never really get a resolution to this though. Did he kill them all? Did they rot in prison? Did he set them free after becoming good? Yeah, I don't know. As you wait for a location on Estark, you continue to journey through the different circles, this time landing in one that appears to be mostly a paradise? In Naderia? You meet up with a familiar face, the one that was supposed to be the warden of the three memories regarding the secret of creation from earlier. His name is Ludo, and he wants you to defeat a dragon that is threatening the peaceful circle. He did help you out earlier, so it's time to return the favour, I guess. Oh, and he's also Saro's brother. There were three of them. There's Saro, Ludo, and Dolph. Things get murky as once you meet up with Wormsworth, the dimension-hopping dragon Ludo wishes for you to kill, you are told that you are being fooled and that Ludo intends to destroy everything and become the new ruler. This sounds familiar, and Ludo has elf blood in him too? Interesting. No time for any deep thinking now though. Beat him and that's that. Wormsworth was only here to stop Ludo, so with that done, he buggers off as well. I guess that's the end of that. Good job none of this will come up again. Back to the main plot then. It turns out that they have found the location of the legendary hero. So Saro travels to the village where he is. To kill him, to recruit him, we don't know. Because before anything can happen, Dolph the Destroyer, Saro's older brother, shows up. However, he's claiming to be Saro the Manslayer and sets the village alight, killing everyone in it, including the legendary hero. Well, not quite. It is a decoy, which you will know as well if you've played Dragon Quest IV in the past. The decoy is dead, everyone thinks the legendary hero is also dead, but just as Saro leaves, the legendary hero returns, sees the destruction of his village, and sees you walking away. So everybody believes you did it. So you're framed by your brother, Dolph the Destroyer, a monster. But this only seems to fuel Sorrow into wanting to kill mankind even more than ever. The whole killing all humans plot point just continues to not really make any sense. Eventually, Estark is found and awoken again, but before you can even attempt to bring him to your side, the hero's party has defeated him. With the battle between the two of you seemingly about to happen, you are informed that something has happened to Rose. This is the turning point, where Rose is killed by humans and finally Sorrow has a genuine reason to want to murder everyone. First though, they just kidnap her and the Zenithian dragon interferes, giving you some cryptic messages. When you return to Rose Hill, Rose is back, apparently having escaped. Toylan explains that she's an imposter, but Rose claims Toylan is behind the kidnapping. When you see Rose crying ruby tears, you have no reason to believe that she's not the real Rose, and so Toylan leaves. Turns out she is an imposter, and the real Rose is murdered, causing Sorrow to absolutely lose it. With the secret of evolution, Sorrow turns into a vicious, giant monster, destroying everything in his path until the events of Dragon Quest IV play out as they always did, with the hero's party defeating and killing Sorrow. Luckily, Toylan Trouble stole some of the Sands of Time and uses it to reverse time, allowing you to see the truth of everything. With this new information, you were able to see through the deception of the fake Rose and arrive in the nick of time to save the real Rose. Not only that, but you finally discover that Eamon is the one pulling the strings behind everything. This does play out very different through the extra chapter in Dragon Quest IV on the DS, but honestly I really like how it plays out in this version. With a newfound perspective, Sorrow is now out for blood against Eamon, and while still harbouring hatred for humans, he no longer wants to wipe them out. After some extra lore about Estark, you meet up with an old frenemy? Ludo. You meet up with Ludo again, who is alive? He hands you some Trafalite to get you to where Eamon is hiding out, so I guess it's all good. Eamon's Sanctum is infamous against players of this game. It has one giant water puzzle and it is very, very annoying as hell to try and work out. So much so that after about an hour of trying it, I just gave up and had to do something else. I went to a different circle and started to try to recruit a green dragon, who was one of the first big bosses of Dragon Quest in the original Dragon Quest game. So after a while, managed to recruit him, synthesize it with some other monsters to create something more powerful, level up for a while, and then eventually I went back to Eamon's Sanctum and I got through it in 15 minutes. After looking it up in a guide. Yeah, I cheated, so what? Eamon reveals that he's actually even worse than you originally thought, explaining some other cruel things he has done over the game, or more accurately, manipulated you into doing. You kick his ass, but before you can land the final blow, the Sanctum begins to crumble. You escape death by being transported away by an ancient elf who had been cursed into turning into an actual circle. The curse is lifted, and the elf returns the favour by creating a special piece of Trafalite for you, capable of taking you to Randolpho. Things finally seem to be going your way, however it is revealed that Eamon was able to escape, and he escaped with the secret of evolution and the items required to make it work. Thankfully, it doesn't really go well for him either, as he does indeed attempt to betray Randolpho, who knew of his plan the entire time, and proves that the secret of evolution is still no match for him, because he has achieved the supreme secret of evolution. Yeah, it's a bit shitty, but whatever. Eamon's dead. The story is coming to an end now, and it is beginning to line back up with the proper Dragon Quest IV story, only with Saro in more of an anti-hero role, and his brother and father taking on the big evil role. Like Saro's fortress in Dragon Quest IV, Randolpho's has a barrier around it, and you must defeat 4 guardians to take it down. Time to confront Daddy Dearest, but first, your thick-headed, muscle-bound brother, Dolph the Destroyer, gets in your way. He's able to send away all of your monsters in one big attack, and because of your curse that stops you from attacking other monsters, you are at his mercy. Just as he's about to land the finishing blow, the hero and his party show up and rescue you, along with the rest of your party, who show up again. So it's left up to you to fight Dolph the Destroyer while the hero holds off his armies. I frankly had an amazing team for this part, and I obliterated Dolph the Destroyer with greatest of ease. But of course, in typical Dragon Quest fashion, just when the battle is over, Dolph the Destroyer gains a power-up, and he looks like he's going to be tougher than ever before, and he's dead. Yeah, so the legendary hero, in absolute cold-blooded fashion, slices through Dolph the Destroyer when he's paying attention to Saro. And now he decides that, well, Randolpho is your problem now. Apparently, being the legendary hero, he was only required to take out Saro, and since Saro is now sort of a good guy, nothing else is his problem. So he and his party buggered off, and it's up to you and your party to go and kill your father. You travel through Randolpho's fort, killing lots of enemies as usual, and finally reach the throne room. Here you will battle against Randolpho the Tyrant. And yep, he also has 2 forms. The second one is one of the easiest fights in the game. It is shockingly easy. Saro wins, the curse is lifted, and he turns down the throne. So the game ends there. Randolpho does pass, as he apparently was beaten so badly he couldn't live anymore, but Saro technically didn't finish him off himself. Not really made clear. There is no king of Nadiria anymore, so now they're waiting for someone to step up and take the throne because Saro just doesn't want it anymore. He goes away to live a peaceful life with Rose? Maybe? I don't know. After that then, we do get some post-game content, and I will not spoil what happens here, but yes, it does revolve around Ludo and some of that other exposition that we got earlier in the game. There are some incredibly difficult boss battles here. There are multiple of them, some of them were fairly easy, one of them I had to level up a bit before I beat it, and then the final boss was hard as balls. I spent hours having to prepare for this, including getting my one and only rank X monster and leveling all of my party up to 100 to beat him. And I finally did it, and the game was over. It was a very fun experience, and the post-game stuff was mostly just boss battles, but hey, it's always nice to have extra content after the main story. And that, finally, is the story of Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, with a whole lot of gameplay thrown in there to add context to the story and how everything worked. This is by far the most I've ever talked about any story in a Dragon Quest game since I've been doing Dragon Questober, including the Dragon Quest XI review that I did for the very first Dragon Questober, and even the upcoming Dragon Quest V video at the end of this month. And I missed out so much as well. So much. I always say it for these videos, but while I do go over the main plot points, and there are a lot of spoilers in that, I still purposely miss out a lot of what happens in the game, because for people who haven't played the game, I don't want you knowing everything. Like me, when I watch a video on a game, I don't want to know every single intricate detail. especially if it's a game I do plan on playing in the future. I still want to be surprised, so I try to do that here. And yeah, considering how much I have talked and how much I've missed out still, it is insane. So let's get around now to finally talking about stuff other than the main story and the main gameplay mechanics. Starting with the elephant in the room, the visuals. They are bright and colourful for sure, and everything does look like what it's supposed to be. And plenty of variety too, with all the different circles having their own themes. But this isn't exactly a graphical powerhouse of a game. Instead, funnily enough, it's similar to the Pokemon games on Switch, as if the game didn't already have plenty in common with Pokemon as it is. While the visuals are clearly more cartoony and less realistic than other games on Switch, they're also much lower quality than games on the Switch. And of course, there is the issue of pop-in and draw distance, sometimes just things in the background like you would expect, but other times actual monsters not too far away from you. And the performance isn't always the best either, though personally I only really found it got bad when you first entered a location and it had to load everything in. And after that it rarely dropped enough frames for me to really notice. And finally, going back to that Pokemon comparison, you have to remember that the Pokemon Company, and Pokemon as a franchise, is the most wealthy, high-grossing media franchise on the planet. Pokemon has money. A lot of money. And yet, when their games come out and they look like trash, you have to wonder what they're actually doing with that money. And also not giving things enough time as well. So Dragon Quest Monsters the Dark Prince, yeah, looks very similar to those Pokemon games, but you have to remember that Dragon Quest as a franchise is still very much a niche franchise, certainly outside of Japan. And with Square Enix still being as popular as they are, they do not have the kind of money the Pokemon Company has. So they're able to make things on the same level as the Pokemon games without anywhere near the budget. Plus, this is a spin-off. It isn't even the mainline games. So honestly, when you compare it to Pokemon like that, it's pretty impressive. Something I forgot to mention earlier about the monsters is that you can equip them with an item, just as you would if this were a mainline game and they were in your party. They do exactly what you would expect them to do, raise different stats or even give them extra experience points. Traits are also here, granting them special abilities, such as potentially auto-healing after attacking, powering up before an attack, or even allowing them to use multiple attacks per turn. There are also scroll items that you can use on a monster to teach them a new talent, though keep in mind you can only learn up to a maximum of 3 at a time, so you'll have to choose carefully if you want to use a scroll. These can be handy to give monsters healing spells they otherwise wouldn't learn, or beef up a monster that desperately needs some power. Mini medals are here also because, of course they are, it's Dragon Quest. Nothing new, you find them while exploring, and getting certain amounts of them will give you items and occasionally even monsters, such as the rare metal slimes. Eggs! Don't worry, I haven't gone insane. More so, anyway. As you explore each circle, you will occasionally stumble upon a monster egg. Inside is a monster, of course, ranging from common monsters that you can easily find and recruit anyway, to something super rare and powerful that is only obtainable through an egg. When the game first released, finding eggs was a rarity, to the point where I don't think I even saw one until halfway through the main story. Then there was an update that was released and it made it considerably easier to find eggs. Each circle has specific locations where eggs will spawn, which can be seen on maps you can find online. The chances of them spawning isn't 100% of course, but you will typically find at least one egg every time now, compared to almost never finding them. For the most part, eggs are just a fun little experience, especially when you get the super rare rainbow egg that will give you a rare monster. However, if you're trying to synthesize a specific monster that requires an egg-only monster, it can be a bit of a pain as you are subject to RNG, which I was at one point. So, something I mentioned earlier was that on my final team to help beat the post-game final boss, I got an X-ranked monster. I went for one called the Almighty, which is a godlike creature who has vicious lightning attacks and pretty cool healing spells. I mainly wanted it for the healing ability, and honestly, it seemed like it was the easiest to obtain. And it still took me hours. And I had a plan of how to get it. And it still took me hours. See, in order to obtain the Almighty or any X-ranked monster, you need to synthesize. A lot. You can start off with two of the most common monsters available, synthesize them into a monster, then continue to synthesize it with another monster that you then have to get to synthesize another monster that synthesizes with that monster, and so on and so on. Yes, it's slightly confusing. I reckon probably 100 plus synthesizers had to be done in order to get the exact monsters needed. Some of them even had to have very specific parents. So for example, Ogdemir, one of the final two monsters required to get the Almighty, had to have been synthesized from a set of 4 specific monsters rather than just 2, which increased the overall work as you had to get 4 monsters to synthesize to start with before you could synthesize them with everything else all together to get Ogdemir. And then you still had to have the second monster available ready to synthesize with Ogdemir to get the Almighty. Between some of these monsters being incredibly difficult to recruit or only egg obtainable, it was a very difficult journey. I had to use a guide for this. I'll link the website below in the description and whatnot, but yeah, I use this and it shows you every monster you need and all the parent monsters that you need to get them. And it is a huge chart if you were to able to open it all up. Massive. Like I said, I had to plan this out very carefully and it still took me hours. Anyone going for a ranked X monster, you need to go on this website and plan it out, because I do not believe anyone is capable of stumbling into these monsters. The sheer luck that you would have to have is probably equivalent to winning the lottery, because there are that many specific synthesizations that need to take place in order to get just some of the monsters that you then have to synthesize with other monsters to get the monsters needed to synthesize together to get the Almighty. It's just not possible without a guide, and honestly, I do not recommend doing it. Phew! I think that covers everything I wanted to say about Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. It has a fantastic story. I love how it goes the opposite direction of Dragon Quest IV. Puts you in the position of the villain of that arc, but turns him into more of a hero as the game goes along, introduces new characters and villains and arcs that brings everything together. Really, really cool. Yes, there are still some strange plot points, mostly with the whole wanting to kill humans thing that never really makes sense, but other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed it. In terms of gameplay mechanics, it's still typical Dragon Quest monsters. Not that much has changed here, but it is simply refined and it is fantastic and I love it a lot. The seasonal changes, while not a huge mechanic, definitely do add to slight replayability during your first playthrough, if that makes sense, because like I said, a lot of the game is going out and recruiting monsters, synthesizing them, leveling them up, going back out, recruiting more monsters to synthesize them. So you are going back and forth to a lot of the same locations time and time again to level up, to recruit new monsters. So with the seasonal changes, forcing the circles to change how they look, what monsters are available, which pathways you can go, really does help stop the boredom of constantly backtracking. The soundtrack is typical Dragon Quest as well. Always love that. Yeah. So that is Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. I highly recommend this game, whether it's on Switch or PC. The PC probably runs better, I don't know for sure. Online features, there is DLC available, though from what I understand of it, it's not really worth the money at all. I haven't bought it, and I'm massive into Dragon Quest, do a whole month on it, in case you haven't noticed, and I just haven't bothered with it, so I can't really recommend that to anyone at all. Oh, and of course, as well as the main story and everything, there is also the 2 tournaments. It's nice to have 2 instead of just 1, going all the way up to the S-ranked battles. And I really like how they're a good sort of pit stop in between all the craziness of the main story and everything else. See, when you maybe get a bit tired of just going out and recruiting monsters and things, synthesizing and dealing with the main story, you could just go back a little bit, go to the arenas and do one of the tournaments. And this is a great way to see if your monsters are good enough for the next chapter of the game, if they're strong enough. They can beat the highest available tournament to you at the time, say like you halfway through the game and you go for C rank. If you can't beat that at that point, you need to go back and get a new team of monsters, come back, and if you beat it, you should be good to go for the next part of the game. So it's nice to have a distraction and to test out your monster party. So overall, fantastic game. Is it the best Dragon Quest Monsters game I've played? I think right now I'm still kind of partial to Joker's 3 Professional on the 3DS. Only came out in Japan, sadly, but there is a fan translation. Yeah, but Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, definitely play it if you're a fan of Dragon Quest, if you're a fan of Dragon Quest Monsters, if you're a fan of Pokemon and any other kind of monster capturing JRPGs. So I'm bigcal. Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, and I will see you real soon for the next Dragon Questober video.